Jace woke up with a huge smile on his face. He got up, showered, and donned his uniform. He left the barracks and went into the office where he was stationed that day. As he got inside, Dakota saw him and said with a grin, "Mighty excited, aren't we?" "More than you could say," Jace answered, still sporting a face-splitting smile. "Well, don't have too much fun without me. I'll be right behind you," and Dakota smacked him playfully on the back. Dakota is his best friend, and has been for years. Since military school, in fact. "Have you talked to Hudson yet?" Dakota asked, referring to their other best friend. "Yeah, I talked to him yesterday and everything's in place," Jace answered. "Good, I'm going out with the captain. I'll see you later before you leave." With that, Dakota left, and Jace settled in his seat and started working. By afternoon, the captain walked in and told Jace, "Hey, you're done for the day. Get out of here." Jace saluted the captain and excitedly went to the barracks to gather his things. As he was about to leave the camp, Dakota caught up with him. "Hey man, have a safe flight." "Thanks, bud. Stay safe out there. See you when you get home," Jace answered, and the two friends shared a brief hug. Today's the day that he's finally coming home to his family, whom he hasn't seen in years. Well, 3 days technically, since he had a long series of flights ahead of him. But the point is, he's finally coming home. What has Jace more excited is the fact that his family doesn't know he's coming. Only his commander-in-chief and his best friend Hudson know he's coming. A few months back, he was told that he'd be going home by this date. Instead of calling his family, he called Hudson, a friend of his and Dakota's from college that didn't pursue a career as a soldier and who's now working as a lawyer. He and Hudson planned an elaborate surprise for his family, whom he missed dearly. On the day of his arrival, Hudson will invite the kids for a playdate with his sons. His wife is tasked to invite Becca to go shopping. While they're out, Jace will be going straight home, cooking dinner, and waiting for his family to come home. On the plane, Jace couldn't contain his excitement. When the plane landed, he was almost bouncing in his seat. At the airport, he made quick stops to buy Matt and Max's favorite chocolate cake and a bouquet for Becca. On the ride home, he called Hudson, who answered and said that everything was going according to plan. Matt and Max are playing with his boys, while his wife and Becca are at the mall, picking up a gift for him. It'll be his birthday in 3 days, and Hudson encouraged his wife to send him a package along with his. She thought he would be surprised with her gift, which they were planning to ship overseas to him, but she's the one in for a surprise. When he got home, the groceries were already on the stoop, just as Hudson promised. He fished the keys out of his pocket, opened the door, and went straight to the kitchen. He dropped his bags on a corner and went to work, or rather, cook. Once done, he set the table on the patio and waited for his family to come home. Hudson already sent him a message that he's on his way to pick up Becca and his wife at the mall before dropping them off here. While he was out waiting, his neighbors, an old couple who were out for a walk, saw him and asked, "Hey Jace, when did you come? Becca didn't mention anything about you coming home," Mr. Wilson called out. "They didn't know I was coming. I'm going to surprise them," Jace answered with a smile. Just then, Hudson's car stopped in front of the gate. Becca got curious about whom the old couple were talking to, as no one's home. She was shocked when Matt shouted, "Daddy!" and ran straight to him with Max on his heels. As the kids bounded for Jace's arms, Becca was crying happy tears. Mrs. Wilson came over and gave her shoulders an affectionate squeeze. "Go hug your husband, dear. We all know how much you missed him." As she turned to thank Hudson and his wife, she saw that most of their neighbors were also out on the street, some coming, some going, but stopped as they witnessed the heartwarming reunion of the lovely family. Hudson's wife gave her a brief hug before telling her they were off. "Go, we'll see you tomorrow." Although a little confused as to what she meant by that, Becca smiled through her tears, bid their friends goodbye, and rushed to the warmth of her husband's arms. Their neighbors, some old couples and other married couples as well, got deeply touched by the lovely picture of the family in front of them. They all knew Jace had been away for years, one of the longest he's ever been away, and they had all been great friends to Becca. Most of the women turned and walked away with tears in their eyes, happy to see the family finally complete after several years. Jace can't stop hugging Max, Matt, and Becca. When the boys got enough of it, boys that they are, squirmed away and went to the table while Jace kept his arm over Becca's shoulders. "Stop crying, honey. Why are you crying about me being here? Didn't you want me home?" Jace jokes. Becca playfully hid his arms as she wiped her tears away. Did you plan this all along?" she asked. "Well, yeah, surprised?" Jace said, laughing, as he guided her to the table where their feast of a dinner awaits. "Chocolate cake, you're the best, Daddy," Max exclaimed, and he and Matt showered kisses on their dad's face. "And this is for you, honey," Jace said, as he handed Becca the flowers he bought. Tears once again welled in her eyes, and Jace tenderly brushed them off. "Stop crying now, and let's eat." The family happily ate dinner, as their neighbors passed by smiling after seeing them. Although they all missed Jace and would have loved to catch up with him, no one intruded, as they all knew Jace needed time with his family after being deployed in a war country for years. So they all passed by quietly, happy for the little boys who had been growing up without their father by their side, and for Becca, who had been in constant worry over her husband's well-being as she took care of their 2 boys. As they eat, the boys asked Jace to recount his experiences while he was away. "Did you get to fight a lot of bad guys, Daddy?" Max innocently asked. "Well, I stopped the bad guys from doing anything bad. How about you? Were you good while I was away?" Max and Matt started to tell their stories, who their new friends were, who left and who came. As they stumbled upon their words because they were too excited to tell Jace all their stories, Becca met his eyes and smiled. This is the best dinner she'd had in a long time. After eating, they went to the living room to watch TV before they all retired for the night. The next day, Becca got woken up by loud conversations downstairs, and Jace wasn't at her side. Instantly alarmed, she shot out of bed and was about to turn the knob when the door was pushed open. Jace was there, smiling with a cup of coffee in his hands. "Good morning, honey. Your mother and father are downstairs. Go get ready, I'll keep them occupied." Extremely confused, Becca went about her morning routine, wondering what her parents were doing there. When she finally went downstairs, she saw a lot of familiar faces. Her parents, Jace's parents, Hudson and his wife and kids, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, and a sea of their neighbors' faces. An overflowing amount of food could be seen on every flat surface of the house. It turns out that this was still part of Jace's surprise, to fly her parents here, as she hadn't seen them in months. That was a surprise for Becca. But what came as a surprise to Jace, though, was when their neighbors started knocking at their door with a dish in their hand to welcome him home. It was while he was having coffee with his and Becca's parents, when neighbors, starting with Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, knocked on the door, food in hand. There was a constant flow of neighbors in and out after that. Some dropped off food, gave him a hug, or a pat on the back as they left for work or went about their day. Some stayed and are now all conversing in the living room. As Jace stood in the bottom step of the staircase, he scanned the room and the faces he had dearly missed. This is home, and these are the people he's fighting for. And it's all worth it. They are all worth it. Jace took in the view, his wife and sons, their parents and friends. What an incredible homecoming.